the characters, and then there's this time jump to January 2016. And we basically see what looks like something that they call with fraternities and sororities this rush day. And to make a long story short, you see that Zayday is the president of Kappa Kappa Tau, and Grace is the vice president, and Hester is the treasurer. And I'm like, now where are all the Chanels? And come to find out, Hester found a way to frame each one of the Chanels. And I was sitting there like, well, how the heck did she do that? But what I really, really wanted to know was what was going on with Hester. And we learned that she and her brother Boone were raised in that asylum alongside of Gigi. Well, Gigi obviously wasn't raised there, but Gigi was pretty much there. And Gigi was distraught over her sister's death, and the doctors helped her turn that sorrow into anger, and she basically taught both of those kids how to kill. So that's the reason why they both were crazy. On top of the fact that once they got out of the asylum, Boone left previously because Boone just decided he was just going to like walk up into Dickie Dollar Scholars and just say that he went to school there, because as Hester said, pretty much if you don't show up to class like the Dickie Dollar Scholars, those guys are rich, nobody's going to question it, so he just went along with it. But Hester had to build an identity, and she had to find herself and her brother like some disguises. So the identity that she built came from taking this girl's scoliosis brace, and then it came from the fact that she sat in a coffee shop with Gigi and saw this guy who was dressed up like a red devil and decided that was the costume that she and her brother were going to use to exact their revenge on Kappa Kappa Tau for what happened to Hester and Boone's mother. And in doing so, Gigi basically had to like keep on stabbing that poor red devil guy. I'm like, after the first couple stabs, I think he's dead, but she had to just keep going and going and going. Then there was the issue of Hester basically finding the clothes, which, as I said, were pretty dated. They looked like they were like from the late 80s, early 90s. Then really becoming a part of that persona. And what really saved Grace and Zayday was the fact that they were nice to Hester, and Zayday even offered to bedazzle that brace that Hester had. So we learned that the twins were responsible for Melanie Dorcas's disfigurement after being sprayed with that hydrochloric acid, which basically spewed out of that self-tanner machine. We also learned that Hester was the person that turned on the, what's it called? The frying thingy, and that's how Miss Bean burned her face. And now that I'm thinking about it, it makes a lot of sense, because when the killer almost killed or was about to kill Sam, Sam says, you know what, that made sense. Like, basically, she seemed like she wasn't surprised that the killer was who it was. And that killer was obviously Hester. Now, Grace and Zayday pointed the finger at Hester and basically said that she was the killer. But Hester had a surprise for them, because Hester covered all bases. Because this girl knew intimate things about Chanel number 3, Chanel number 5, and Chanel. She convinced Chanel number 5's parents to turn against her and say that she was adopted and that she was put in an asylum. She knew about Chanel number 3 being Charles Manson's daughter, and about the letters that he sent her teaching her how to kill, and also about this alter ego that she possibly had that also killed. Then she turned it on Chanel and flipped Chanel on her head by basically saying that Chanel killed all of the pleasures that would have messed up Kappa Kappa Tau. And then Chanel was like, well, if that was true, then how come I didn't kill Grace and Zayday? That's when Hester threw out, you know what, Grace and Zayday were your cover. So in other words, she couldn't kill every pledge, because then everybody would think it was her. But if she didn't kill Grace and she didn't kill Zayday, then there would be a question in everybody's mind. And of course, Denise Hemphill went along with it. God, I love Niecy Nash, I swear. And then the next thing you know, she has these cops come and arrest them, and the cops are strippers. I was too through. As I've said in the beginning, when I started reviewing this show, I don't take this show seriously because you know something crazy is going to happen. It's basically like a satire of a horror movie, but sometimes it's a satire of a satire of a satire. And basically, in the end, we finally see Chad again. Chad and Denise were in love. They had a love affair, then they broke up. Apparently, for some reason, some way, somehow, Denise moved up the ladder again. And she was going down to Quantico to become part of the FBI. And, like, their whole breakup scene, the one between Chad and Denise, was hilarious. Then there was this whole thing about the DDEGRDCCF Foundation. I mean, the whole, like, the acronym was crazy, but you cannot expect anything less from Chad. And hopefully, if they have a season 2, Chad has to return, because Chad, to me, Chad was another one of my favorite characters because I always look forward to what he's going to say. But also we learn that the school made this memorial for all of the people that died. And of course, the Radwells gave money to erect this memorial, but they allowed Chad to write the words on the memorial. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not even going to say anything. I know it was something foolish. I can't remember what it said though. But Hester seems so happy to be a part of KKT and to work with Zayday and Grace because she really, really likes them. So at least we don't have to worry about them dying if there's a season 2. And the dean tried to approach Hester and was basically telling Hester, like, I knew that you looked familiar and you were that baby that came out of the mother when the mother did the death rattle after she gave birth to Boone. And she seemed like she was going to tell on Hester, but then Hester came back and Hester was like, you know what, you can tell on me, but I'll tell on you that you killed your husband and that you covered up my mother's death. And they both just went on smiling like, okay then. We'll just go back to our best-selling lovely lives pretty much. So, in the end, I really enjoyed how this double episode finale ended. I feel like Chanel got what was coming to her. Now, I did like her as a character, but she had the tendency to say the first nasty thing she could think of, and she did so at the end of this episode at the wrong time, right before the jury was going to deliver a not guilty verdict. And the jurors decided, or that one juror with the curly gray hair decided, screw this, she's going to the asylum. But to make matters worse, Chanel learned that her family completely and utterly disowned her, and she was broke. So pretty much it was better that she ended up in the asylum anyway, because I don't think she could have handled being broke. And it seemed like she and the other Chanels had settled in well, and Chanel 5 took some pills and she was bearable in Chanel Oberlin's eyes, and Chanel was revealing secrets to Chanel 5, and then Chanel 3 found love, and everything seemed to be fine. In fact, Chanel reminded me of the dean being in that asylum. She seemed happy. But I should have known that this was not going to end on a shiny, happy note, because Chanel laid down to go to bed, heard a sound, looked up, laid back down, and the Red Devil was standing over her, and that's how the episode ended. So, pretty much, my verdict on the double episode season finale was that it was what I expected. It was crazy, but then everything that Ryan Murphy and his crew create always ends on a crazy note, and I hope that this show gets a second season because I want to know what's going to happen, who donned that Red Devil mask, and if the rumors are true and the show decides to bring up a new killer, who is that going to be? Or should I say, what type of costume will that be? What's that story going to be like? I mean, I really enjoyed doing these reviews. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Don't forget to rate this video, leave me your comments, let me know what you thought about this episode, about the season, and whether or not you want the show to come back. But I love you guys. Thank you so much. Bye, guys. Bye.